How to get your picky eater to eat better. Tips from a pediatrician and also behind the scene advice that you don't always get to cover at your child's doctor's visit. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Eileen. I'm a board certified pediatrician. I take an evidence-based approach to medicine, but I also believe that the best care is delivered with compassion and knowledge by being an advocate for the child and the whole family. In this video, I want to address a common frustration expressed by parents, and that is addressing the question specifically how to get their picky eaters to eat better. Families express to me how difficult it is to get their child to eat a new vegetable, how much time they have to spend just to feed one meal, and how difficult it is to broaden their child's food choices. So I want to give you a framework to think about food and feeding your child so that you can walk away feeling more empowered and encouraged to work with your child and teach them how to eat a more diverse diet. So let's get started. Number one, acknowledge your child's independence and development. So as your child begins to grow and get older, they're developing a sense of self and independence. So for an 18-month-old, for example, an 18-month-old may have been eating perfectly his whole life, and then up to that point suddenly decides that he can say no, and he wants to exercise the ability to say no and make decisions. And that's something actually to be celebrated because they're learning to be their own person and having their own preferences. So instead of saying your way or the highway, make your child an active part of that decision. Offer them 2 to 3 healthy options, put it on their bowls or plates, and allow them the ability to make a decision to pick 1 to 2 foods out that they like to eat of the things that you already presented to them. So this tells your child that you are in on this together with them and that they are also expected to take an active part of this decision making. Number 2, eating preference is just that. It's a learned and curated behavior. I have to start by reminding you that the foods that we like to eat change over time. Remember that you used to like something, then don't like it anymore. Or maybe something that you didn't like, but now you're starting to incorporate into your daily diet. That is the same dynamic relationship that your toddler or child has with food as well. So when you offer your child a certain food, he or she may at that time spit it out or say no or throw it back at you. It may mean several things. It may mean that at that time, that food didn't taste like something they wanted. They may not like the texture. It may not be according to what they expected it to taste like, or they simply just don't want to eat. So don't think of that as a failure and that your child is permanently saying no. My advice would be to try again. Try to offer again, and again. So eventually, the more you give your child to that food, the more that food will become less strange and more familiar. So perhaps one day, your child would pick up a vegetable that he has previously shunned, and that would be a win-win. Number 3, establish a good relationship with food. This is super, super important, you guys, having a good relationship with food. That is by making food and mealtime a positive part of your child's day. Now, sometimes we've heard parents trying to treat or punish your child so that if they don't eat certain foods or do certain things, they take food away, or they give a special treat if they do something well. Food in general should be enjoyed as an experience that you have, and it's nourishing, it's good for your body. And I would say try not to assign too much emotional certain meanings that this is a validation for what they're doing or what they're not doing. When your child is eating certain foods that they like, praise them for things that they're eating, they're willing to try. If they're not hungry, if they're just not wanting to eat the food that you put in front of them, that is okay too. I would say don't try to bribe them by having 3 other less healthy or unhealthy choices for them. But if they're not hungry, put a food away and wait for your child to express that they're hungry to offer those foods again. It's also worth mentioning that it's generally not recommended to have any kind of screen time while your child's eating. I know we often do this because the social media and the digital world has become such a big part of our lives. But the American Academy of Pediatrics actually does not recommend any screen or digital time for your child under 18 months old. Now, if they're over 18 months old, I still recommend limiting those time, and definitely during meals, you want to take it away so that they can truly look at the food that they're eating and truly enjoy what they're eating and the flavors that they're ingesting. And that this is a perfect opportunity for you to sit and have a meal together that you guys can bond. By the way, if you have found something valuable in this video, please give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on my new videos. Number 4, forget the concept of baby food. So I think there is a lot of apprehension and misunderstanding about what your child can and should eat. The marketing world does such a great job adding color, adding certain graphics to certain designated baby foods. So you think that your child will only eat it if it's got those colors or flavor profile. And I would say, honestly, when your baby is just getting to eat, they don't understand what blueberry muffin tastes like, but they may really like the flavor of blueberries. They may really like the flavors of non-fat yogurt if they've not been drinking sugary yogurt their whole lives. So always remember to start from the basics. And to a child, what's out of the box really comes down to the food, taste, texture, and the size, whether they are able to eat it. So, I was telling my parents, if your child's trying to eat, do you really think that a spear of asparagus would be any less tasty than a green, color enriched asparagus or veggie straw that comes out of a plastic bag? Not really. So I would say this is a part you kind of always wanted to consider what your child's able to chew, what they're able to hold in their fingers, and when starting your child on food. And try to stay away from kid-friendly food just because they said that it is baby applesauce or baby peanut butter, because honestly, I wouldn't say that the baby applesauce or apple puree is any better than the regular grocery store bought applesauce or the regular nut butters that you already use on your toast. So whatever you guys are eating, that's what I always tell my patients and families. Whatever you eat, go ahead and offer to your child. Now, if you have a toddler or an infant that is just starting to eat food, you have to consider whether able to hold and whether to digest. So you want to make foods that's very overly degradable and that they are able to digest and mush on them with their gums or with a few teeth that they have. If your child is older, then definitely offer them food that you eat, maybe that your families love or your culture love. So some cultures even introduce certain spices and salt to their children after 6 months of age. So there's no absolutes in what you can't have and introduce. And I definitely recommend trying different foods that you normally eat. The few things that you don't want to give your child under 1, I will have another video especially dedicated to that, about how to start your baby on foods and foods to avoid until 1 year of age. So stay tuned. Number 5, normalize the foods that you eat. It's okay to show your child that we're all going to eat the same thing. The families that offer their child a separate plate of food are the ones that generally have the hardest time getting their child to eat, because when you're doing this, you're telling your child, oh, it's okay to say no. It's okay to just wait and refuse my food until I get what I want. It's okay to not participate during mealtime. It's okay to be very, very different from the rest of my family. And it's okay to throw a temper tantrum because I might have a second, a third, or fourth option. So I always tell my parents, whatever you guys are eating, even at a younger age, you might want to cut them to smaller pieces, cook them so they're more tender, but offer your child the same foods that you all eat. That way your child is under always the impression that food is a collective thing that we get to enjoy together, and that if mom and dad are eating it, your child wants to emulate you. They're seeing that, and you're setting good role models and having mealtime together. They're going to take a curiosity to the foods that you're eating and want to partake. So always try to normalize your food. There's nothing wrong with what you're eating. I often find that oftentimes if you leave it to a toddler, they may not know what's best for them at a young age. But most families and parents that I talk to have a pretty good idea. to incorporate some vegetables and varieties and different things into their diet. So trust what you already know and trust that you have your child's best intention in mind. So when you're saying no to the only three foods that they're eating, you're not being their worst friend. You're just actually setting down some ground rules and expectations so that they're learning what's best for them. And there you have it. These are some of the tips that I share with my families and patients when they're struggling with a picky child and a picky eater. Now, if you are having difficulty feeding your child, or if your child seems particularly picky about not just food, but also textures and sounds and the order of things, I always recommend bringing these conversations and concerns up and having them with your pediatrician so you can discuss them in more detail. This is meant to be educational, it is not diagnostic, but I do believe that every child and every parent deserves information that is backed by science. Thank you for tuning in. Dr. Aileen. Take care.